And as we go into today's subject, I'm going to start off with a challenge to see who knows their pop culture. So I have a bunch of faces here on the screen, and by a hand, whoever raises their hand first, I'm going to see if anybody thinks they can name all 8 of these individuals. All 8. Mike has his hand up, so let's go ahead from the top right, left corner there.
Lincoln, Gandhi, Streisand, Prince Harry, Bruce Willis, Julia Roberts, Harrison Ford, and Adele.
You might be the first person that's ever gotten all 8, so round of applause, come on. That's pretty good. I think you're the first person that's ever gotten all 8. Now, follow-up question, even bigger round of applause if you get this right. What do they all have in common?
Well, we weren't all born in Iowa.
I don't think Gandhi was born in Iowa. No. Anybody want to help him out? Anybody else think they know?
They weren't all in Pretty Woman either.
No.
They're all public figures.
But, I don't know if Gandhi would consider himself a celebrity.
They want to get study.
Think about what we're about to talk about, if you know what we're about to talk about. Our next subject is.
Oh, we've all got stage fright probably, right?
These all have an admitted fear of public speaking or being in front of people. That they have admitted that this has been difficult for them, from those that have long in the past to the current people who are still performing today. In the case maybe of these two, they still put themselves up on stage even though it's very, very difficult for them. And the point reason I bring that up is because the fears that you sometimes get when you are coming up in front of a group of people, you're not alone. Very, very common. How many of you raise your hand if you did feel some nerves coming up to present yesterday? So I've got almost unanimous, except for Mike.
No, I haven't.
Okay. So a unanimous score there. Everybody's feeling nervous. And I always say that you get to a point where you don't have any nervous anticipation. I like to call it nervous anticipation. Then it may not be exciting anymore. It may have lost the thrill, because there's got to be a little bit of nervous energy there. Now you'll notice the title of this lesson is Dealing With, Not Overcoming. I cannot teach anybody how to overcome nervousness. If I did, I'd be a multi-millionaire or a billionaire. Either that or a pharmacist, one of the two. All I can do is help you, and we're going to work together on this actually, on different ways to deal with the things that make us nervous. But before we get to that, it is known fact that the fear of public speaking is actually one of the top 10 fears. Anybody know where it fits in the top 10?
Just before sharks.
Just before sharks, okay. Anybody else? Venture a guess?
5.
Number 5. Now I have 2 sources, two reputable sources to give us this information. Let's start off with our first source, probably the most reputable source we have.
I saw a study that said speaking in front of a crowd is considered the #1 fear of the average person. I found that amazing. Number 2 was death. Death is number 2? This means to the average person, if you have to be at a funeral, you would rather be in the casket than doing the eulogy.
Great testimonial from Jerry Seinfeld. However, I did pull up some real statistics there that show, and this is American fears, so I'm not sure how this fits into worldwide. But it's still number 1. And interestingly, I don't even see sharks on that list.
Bugs, snakes, and other animals.
I mean, you have clowns.
Clowns.
but no sharks.
I think shop will fall under the
Other
animals.
So again, the point here is that it is a common fear that everybody has. I don't typically get nervous coming up in front of boot camp. Why? Because I've done it a bunch of times. I'm excited to do it. I always enjoy doing it. But when I have to go and do a presentation at a new venue, like at an agility, in front of a new audience, it's a new presentation for me. Oh yeah, there's some nervous energy. But the things that make me nervous, that is something I can control. I have, and you have, control over the things that make you nervous. So what we're going to do is I'm not just going to sit here and tell you everything. I want you guys to be involved. So on your book, what page are you on there?
31.
31? What I'm going to do is I'm going to, at the very top, just the very first question there, I'm going to give you about 2 minutes. I want you to jot down different things that you can think of that make you nervous before you give a presentation. This could be 2 weeks before the big presentation you have to do. This could be 2 days before the big presentation, the night before the presentation, the morning of, on the drive there. What are the different kinds of things that make you nervous before you give a presentation? And just list as many as you can, and then we're going to go over them together as a group. Go ahead. All right, go ahead and finish writing down whichever one you were writing down at this time, and we'll work together as a group, not just to share our fears, but to figure out what we can do about them. Thomas, what's one of the fears you have down?
Not enough knowledge.
Not enough knowledge. Okay. I hear that one a lot.
And
Well,
maybe
just
to clarify, because for me this has two meanings. First one is if I don't have enough knowledge, I would probably won't be able to provide a clear message.
Okay.
If it's not clear for me, it cannot be clear for the other. And depending of the presentation, if there are some questions, maybe I will not be able to answer.
Okay. So knowledge, you're worried about content, and the questions. How many of you have something written down that fits something like this? Okay. Not surprising. I hear that a lot.
So my fear is that I feel that the crowd knows maybe more than me.
Okay.
the content.
So, first off, on the category of the before the presentation, I find that my suggested mitigations fit into 3 categories, which we'll review as we go through this. First off, harsh reality. I'm going to give you the harsh reality. You're new SEs. It's going to take you time to build your knowledge. There's no doubt about that. I can't just magically make you all have the same amount of knowledge as Ido sitting over there who knows WebSafe and ASM better than anybody could possibly know. That's not going to happen. It's going to take you time, and there's no doubt about that. But I'll give you my own perspective. I have to teach in front of some of the toughest audiences, SEs. The SEs are always smarter than I am when it comes to technology, overall. They know a lot more about the technology world than I do. That's just my personal belief. I have to go out and teach in front of partner engineers, same thing. But if I'm going to go out and I've got a 3-hour class on the new features of ASM, let's say, and I put this training together myself, I've gone through all the slides, I've gone through all the features, I've gone through all the hands-on exercises. I have to go in knowing that, yes, these guys probably know ASM as well, if not better than I do. They probably know the real world scenarios of ASM. That's the important thing. They're going to know the real world use of ASM a lot better than I do. There's no doubt about that. But you know what? These couple new features, I know that. I know those features, and they don't really know that yet, and they want to know that. They're going to want to know that from me. That's how I feel when I'm going to go in and do certain kinds of training. Still knowing that there's going to be a lot of people in the audience that know more than I do about a lot of things. And you could be here for 5 years, 8 years, and you're still going to have people that know certain things better than you in the audience. But that being said, that doesn't help you today. So you're being asked in 3 weeks to go out and do a 1-hour ASM presentation. Oh my gosh, I'm so worried about my, I'm not going to have all the information and so forth. So what can I do? I've got this presentation in a week and a half. What can I do to help myself not be so nervous about the fact that I'm just not going to have enough knowledge to get through this presentation on ASM?
Get knowledge.
How do I get knowledge?
Online resources, colleagues.
So you're going to go through a period of time where you have to learn as much as you can learn. And it's very possible you're going to learn what you need to learn at the time because you have to go deliver this or go talk about that. So if I have enough time, if I've got a week and I'm really nervous because I've got to go teach something on cloud and it's not my specialty, instead of being nervous about it, I better find some resources to build up as much knowledge as I can. That doesn't mean I'm going to become the equivalent of my cloud SMEs out there. So this is where I fit into one of my first mitigations, which is the prepare. You have to spend your time preparing. You have to. I find that so many things you have written down probably right now are going to be mitigated. How many have something written down? How many have something to the effect that I'm nervous that I'm not going to get my presentation done in time? I'm nervous that I'm not going to have my content ready. Does anybody have anything like that? Nobody. Okay. I get that one a lot as well. That I'm just not going to have my whole presentation ready to go before ISC. Or the agility. And the mitigation I get for that, because I have that same issue myself. I'm kind of a procrastinator when it comes to certain things. And so I'll be like, oh my gosh, I've got 2 weeks left. I don't know if I'm going to get this done before agility. Oh my gosh, it's only 1 week. I haven't done anything yet. What am I going to do? I've only got 2 days left. Gee, what can I do to get over this fear? How about if I start doing some work? Start preparing for it and stop worrying about it. Now, some of us need to force ourselves or remind ourselves. So the tip that I give people, if you fall into that category, is put things on your Outlook or in your own phone calendar or something. Put things that say, 2 weeks out, I should have 25% of my slides. 1 week out, I should have 50% of my slides. That way, at least you're getting reminders and you don't suddenly realize, oh my God, tomorrow's that presentation and I totally forgot about it and I have nothing. That would be terrifying. That would be really scary. This is a true story. I used to do a lot of presentations for my sales operations team. They would ask me to come in and do presentations because these are non-technical people. And they'd ask me to talk about WebSafe or SSLO or whatever it is and kind of explain it to them, and I love doing that. But same thing, I kind of sometimes put it off a little bit too long. And I think the last one I did might have been SSLO. I can't remember which one it was, but I was kind of putting it off. And it was Monday, I think it was Monday, and I was like, gosh, I've got to get this done by next Wednesday. I probably should start working on it. I've only got a little over a week. And the next day I got a pop-up on my calendar that said, meeting is tomorrow. And I'm like, what? I was wrong. I was off by a week. I thought it was the following Wednesday, but it was actually this Wednesday, and I now had 24 hours to get this done. I got it done, but I was in a panic state because I just didn't properly prepare myself. So these 3 mitigations, by the way, fall into the 3 Ps. I call it the 3 Ps. So the first P is you've got to take the time to prepare. And in terms of knowledge, I recommend using all the tools that we give you. How many of you, by the way, have a mentor that has been assigned to you by your manager? A mentor. Okay, that's good, more than half. If you did not raise your hand, I recommend today, tomorrow, within the next couple of days, you email your manager, because your managers are supposed to be assigning you a mentor. who is there to help you in your first several months in anything that you need. One of those things could be, hey, I'm going to this ASM presentation, do you have any other resources? But if I'm nervous about not having the knowledge, then I need to go and find the resources just to at least get a little bit more knowledge. Find some hands-on exercises. Find some demos. Get in the UI. Play with it. Play with whatever it is you're doing. You're still not going to know everything. But the more, I guarantee you this, the more you read about it, the more you play with it, the less nervous you're going to be. The more you stay away from it, then you're just going to be nervous about it. As far as questions go, now, once I build up my knowledge, that means I'll never get a question that I don't have the answer to, right?
Yes.
No. No. No matter how much knowledge you have, you're always going to get questions you don't have the answers to. I guarantee it. Nobody has every answer. So I will also give you the hard truth that don't freak out that you may not be able to answer every question, because you're never going to be able to answer every question. The question you have to ask yourselves is, what do you do when you're in that scenario?
Truth is,
How do you handle that?
getting those questions, it usually means that there's something good going on you might want to be involved with too. If it's something a little bit more, if they're that far into it, it's further than you prepared for, there probably is something down the road that you might make some money.
Well, it depends, I guess, what the questions are. I mean, questions to me fall into a lot of categories. Sometimes you got just those challenge questions. You got someone in the audience who's just trying to challenge you to see how much you know. I had one SE a couple of years ago from Australia. For his name, I got to look it up. But all throughout my training, he'd be like, well, but couldn't you maybe write an I rule where AFM and AFPM could work together and they could do this and do that? And I'd be like, I guess, yeah, try it. He's asked me questions that I don't have a yes or a no answer to. Here's my advice about questions. This is, first off, do we ever want to just tell somebody the answer when we're not sure if it's right or wrong? Oh, here's the answer, it's this. Do we want to do that?
No.
Why not? What happens if somebody else is in the room who knows I'm wrong? And they say, actually, that's not right. What's happened to my credibility? I've lost my credibility with everybody. So never want to say with certainty, here's the answer when we're wrong. When we don't know for sure. I get questions all the time. I've been teaching ASM, APM, AFM for years. I always get questions that I don't have the answer to. Sometimes I have a strong gut feeling about it. If I had to put money on it, I would say that this is probably the answer, but I'm not certain. Don't quote me on it. That's what I tell people. So I'm not putting all of my chips on the table that this is the right answer. I'm not claiming that this is the right answer. I'm saying that with my background and my understanding, I think this might be the right answer. The other thing that I recommend is a lot of times when people say, oh, put it on the parking lot, write the questions on the parking lot, which I think is a great idea. However, you're going to get a lot of questions. If you put every question in the parking lot, you're going to have 25 questions on here. What I say is when you get a question you don't know the answer to, you're not sure of, say, I'm not positive, I'm not sure. Would you like me to check on that? I've got a SME list that I can email. Would you like me to look that up? Probably 3 out of 4 times they're going to say, oh no, that's okay, I was just curious. And then don't worry about it. Don't parking lot that, don't look it up. They're just asking random questions. But if they do say, yes, I need to know that, it's a deal-breaking question, then that's one we're going to look up. And finally, the last thing I'll say is when you do have your SME and you are nervous about some of these initial meetings, the point is that they can go with you, to be there with you, so that you've got somebody. The first time I had to teach WebSafe, I was extremely nervous. But I had my subject matter expert there in the room with me, and he did field some questions, and that made me feel better. have him in the room. So that's another thing you can do with your mentor. That's kind of what they're there for. Okay, that was a long ramble, but I hope that helped. Let's see, Java, do you have something else on your sheet making you nervous?
Being heckled?
Wow, what are you doing? Are you doing like a song and dance or jokes? What? Give me an example what you mean by that.
I don't know. I guess forgetting, in the middle of your presentation, losing track of your thoughts.
Okay, that's totally different.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
so you're afraid that you're going to lose your place.
Yeah.
How many of you have something written down like, I'm afraid I'm going to lose my place. I'm afraid it's not going to go well. I'm afraid the presentation is not going to be perceived well. I'm afraid they're not going to like me. I'm afraid the audience is not going to like me. Anything of this nature. Does anybody have something written down kind of like that? I'm shocked only a few of you might say that. My mitigation suggestions here fall into my second P. These are the things that we do to ourselves. Call it self-sabotage. Why are you afraid of this? It hasn't happened yet. Why are you afraid that it's not going to go well? That hasn't happened yet. So what we're doing is we are what I call planning for the worst, preparing for the worst case scenario, right? Several years ago, somebody introduced me to this book because I was constantly calling them and telling me these things that were going on in my life, this and that and the other, and they finally asked me, they said, well, what are you doing to bring all this on? And I said, I'm not doing anything. What are you talking about? I'm doing nothing. And they said, well, read this book. Just read it and see what you think. And so I read it. I got it. It was like, well, that seems very simplistic, but the idea is, behind this book, is how most of us go through life with this idea of preparing for the worst. Those of you that have kids, I remember when I was a kid, I used to go ride my bike miles with my friends across busy streets to parks. My mom just cared that we made it home in time for dinner. But all of my friends who have kids now, they don't let their kids ride their bikes without them being with them. They have to go with them to the park. The world has changed. And I asked, well, why? Because it's so dangerous. They're protecting their kids. But what they're telling their kids is it's dangerous out there. It's dangerous. So, the world is dangerous. There's dangerous people. There's this, I'm going to go on a job interview. Oh, it's not going to go well. They're not going to want me. I don't have the qualifications. I don't have the skills. I'm going on a date. It's not going to go well. I'm nervous. We go through life with this mentality, and we're putting out all this negative energy. I'm going to go do this presentation. It's not going to go well. They're probably not going to do this, buy the deal. I'm probably going to get fired as a result. I'm going to lose my place, and I'm going to look like a dumbass in front of everybody. And I'm going to get up on stage. How do you suppose the presentation is going to go?
So that's really interesting because I got to jump in here because it's something I think about a lot. See, I get that and preparing conflicted, right? So I almost call that board gaming, right? You're going into something, you're preparing, and you have to think of all possible outcomes, which there's going to be positive and negative with that. And you have to figure out how to deal with the negative. But to your point, you get caught in this rat hole of thinking of all the negatives. So it's interesting.
It's one thing to prepare for, okay, if they're not responsive to this pitch, okay, then I have a backup. It's another thing to say they're just not going to like me. They're not going to like it at all. To me, they're two different things. Preparing is great. I think preparing your presentation is important. I'm not talking about, in this case, preparing. I'm talking about just what we are putting in our mind about the presentation, but not even just the presentation, anything in life. And the second P, it sounds simplistic, that's what this whole book was about, but you know what? For a short period of time, I followed the book's advice, and I did see a change in my life. It's instead of being so negative with ourselves, We've got to try and switch our mindset. It's hard sometimes for some of us. Instead of saying, I'm going to lose my place and I'm going to probably get messed up and tripped up, instead of letting myself think that a lot, try to stop myself and say, no, you know what? I'm actually going to do really well. I've rehearsed that grab. The grab is really good. I've gone through my slides a few times, so I know that the slides are good. And I've got my presentation skills. They're going to like me. I think I'm going to get this deal. I'm going to get my quota. I'm going to do really well. I'm going to do really well. I'm driving there. This is going to go good. I'm getting myself excited. I'm getting pumped up. I'm about to go on. All right, I got my grab. I'm ready to go. This is going to go really well. When I come up on stage, the odds of me starting well and continuing the whole presentation well are so much greater than if I'm 5 minutes before the presentation thinking, oh, this is not going to go well. I didn't practice. I'm going to be awful. It's just the truth. I've seen it happen in this class so many times. When somebody's last words before they get started are, all right, I'm not going to do very well, but go ahead and get started. It's like, why are you putting that as your last thought in your head? You're setting up your own outcome. And this is a way that we can change our own outcome. When I go to my job interview, I've got to say, I'm going to get this job because they're going to like my skills. They're going to like my presence. I'm a great person. I got a great personality. Why would I not want to think bad about myself? Why would I want to go into the job interview setting myself up that they're not going to want me, that I don't have the skills? That's going to come across. It's a simplistic concept, but it makes a huge difference in our overall attitude about everything, including giving presentations. That's the second P. Let's see. What do you, something else you have on your list?
Sure. I want to continue the conversation. When you say when you prepare, what challenge I think now is I do prepare a few rounds, but I don't think I have enough time to practice more. Then I don't feel I have a perfect to me situation. Then I feel nervous and I might not be doing well. I didn't think too much negative thing, but I still didn't feel like preparing enough to reach a state which satisfy myself.
Well, then, going along what we said, you've got to allocate more time until you feel that. What you're saying is you're always worried you haven't prepared enough. Now, that being said, you might just be a perfectionist and you may never accomplish that, I know a couple of people who, in the fitness world, I'm like, haven't you reached your goal yet? You look amazing. They'll never reach their goal because their goal is unachievable. You may have an unachievable goal for all I know in terms of what you think. We talked about this yesterday. I thought you did a great job and you did not think you did a great job. You might be feeling that you're worse than you actually are. Now, do you actually have another fear on there, like something specific that makes you nervous on your list?
The other one I find I'm fear about forgetting on the flow.
Okay, good one. Flow, forgetting anything. I'm going to just put flow on there, but this could be anything I'm worried about. And this kind of goes along with losing my place, the flow. I'm worried about if I'm going to be able to make my transitions properly. I'm worried about if I'm going to remember each of my slides and all of my animations. Gosh, what could I do? Start getting over that fear. Any suggestions? Maybe let's start with a P. How about practice? Yes, there's a good one. There's another P. I cannot stress and emphasize enough the value of practicing. Now, I like to put presentations into two categories. We have some presentations where I'm just going in to talk to 2 or 3 people at a customer or on a table. I've been there a few times. I have another presentation where I'm going in front of 25, 30 people. This is a new potential account. It's a financial, it's a telco, And we're talking a possible, $1 million deal. My VP is going to be there. These are two different presentations. And the amount of time I'm going to put into my preparation, positive energy, and practice is obviously going to be a lot more for this one. So when we talk about practice, this is very specific of what kind of practice we want to do. Practice does not mean I'm sitting in my cube, in my home office, looking at my computer and just reading everything. That's not a real practice. This is why I said yesterday, take the time, take a partner, go out and talk out your presentation out loud. Reading your presentation is not going to give you proper practice. Your mouth finds it's weird. The first time you say something, you could have read it 100 times. The first time you say it, it just comes out in its own way that you're not prepared for. And so proper practice means, I call it a live dress rehearsal practice in front of somebody. In fact, I'm doing that later to have some recordings I need to do. I cannot do recordings like this. I can't do recordings without somebody in the room. I need somebody else there. And this is where your mentor can be really helpful. Ask your mentor, can I run this presentation by you? And part of that dress rehearsal means I'm standing. I'm not sitting down and just talking. I'm standing because I've asked them to give me feedback on several things. My vocal quality and my volume, but also my movement, my gestures, all these things that we learned about in the boot camp. And I can only practice that if I'm standing up and actually doing it. And quite honestly, it is hard for me to do movement and gestures when there's nobody in the room. That's why I need at least one person there to at least play off of. So a true dress rehearsal means I'm standing, I'm talking it out loud. Hopefully I have a projector so I actually can see the slides behind me. And the more you practice, you do it once, that's going to help. You do it twice, that's going to be great. You've gone through it a third time, it's going to be amazing. Make it through a fourth time, you are not going to be nearly as nervous. You may not even be nervous at all about forgetting your place and the flow, because it is so now in your mind. You've got the rhythm of it. But if you haven't had a chance to even practice it once, oh yeah, you're going to be nervous. You're going to be terrified, and I would be too. I would never want to put you in that position. I always practice when I have to present in front of somebody, something new, always. At least once, usually 3 or 4 times out loud. The more you do it, the less nervous you're going to be, and the much better your presentation is going to go. Much better it's going to go. I mean, I guarantee it. Those are my 3 Ps. Prepare, practice, take the time to prepare. You've got to take some time. And again, I'm talking about this presentation here, this big one. I don't want to wait till the night before to start working on this presentation. I got to get this one ready to go so that I have time to practice it. And then I'm going to not let myself get wrapped up in those negative thoughts on the way there. Oh God, this is going to go terrible. My VP is going to be there. He's going to hate me. I'm thinking, you know what? I'm going to shine in front of my VP. I'm going to show my VP why they hired me, and that I'm going to get kudos from my VP. I'm so excited. Totally different attitude of going into that presentation. Anybody have other fears that we don't have anything categorized here yet?
From my side, there are 2 point of views, or to view, to present in a foreign language or to present in your native language. For me, it's not a real problem to present in German, and I'm really confident, but in English I don't have this switch in my mind, so sometimes I have to translate something I think of in German and have to say it in English, and that's a really difficult one. So it's way another point to present in your own.
And I would say 2 things to that. Number 1, the more times you do practice it in English, the better. Number 1.
Yeah, but the problem is, for my job, I don't need English presentations.
Well, then you don't worry about it.
Yeah, but I have to present.
But for today,
yeah.
then you will practice it more. But even if you ever do have to go out and do it, let's say, I would say practice it as many times as you can in the other language.
Yeah.
I speak a little bit of Spanish, but if they asked me to go to present in Spanish, I'd be terrified because I also am in the same boat. But I would also There are certain things that I would not want to share with an audience. I would not come in and say, hi there, I just wanted to let you guys know I'm a new SE, so I don't have as much knowledge as others. I would not want you to start with that. But you could say, German is my natural language. I don't speak much English, so forgive me as I'm doing translation in my head. They're going to totally understand that. They're going to sympathize with you as you're trying to do that. I would share that up front. There are certain things I tell people I'm hard of hearing. I'm hard of hearing, so that if they're asking a question and I can't hear them, there's certain things you can share that will be okay. But I wouldn't want to share that. I don't know as much about ASM as the other guy that you could have brought in. I wouldn't want to tell them that. Anything else that you've got on your list?
So the same as writing documentation. It's writing it to the level of who you're speaking to or you're trying to write documentation for. So am I speaking too high level or too deep?
So your fear is?
Basically, the content, is it at the level that it should be?
So remember we talked about this yesterday, and I will go back to yesterday where what you're saying is you're not sure if your content's going to be appropriate for the people there. And again, as I said yesterday, you're not going to know that till the day of when you get there, unless maybe you check ahead of time. So in that case, I might reach out ahead of time and just get a little vibe of the people there. But I also would always encourage you all, we talked the idea yesterday about simplicity and so forth, is always start at a high level. Don't ever go into the weeds in your presentations in 5-10 minutes. In fact, rarely do you have to go into the weeds. I say only go into the weeds when they take you there, when somebody asks you about it. Somebody asks me about full proxy architecture, I'll say, the client makes one request that comes in, we can do certain things, and we have another request that goes to the server. I wouldn't say, we can also use Snap, where we can change the address, we have the incoming. Now I'm getting too deep, and that's too much to answer that question. Unless they say, I heard about Snap, what does Snap do? Okay, then I'll explain that. So I would start at more of a high level, almost in all cases, even if it's a technical audience, because we don't want to just overload them with a bunch of technical content anyway, in my opinion. You have something?
Yeah.
Last one.
Basically, in the past, I have this problem where if I was told to do a presentation, and if it comes from my director and they tell me that, it's going to be simple for you, then my mind goes through a mind jumping. Why is he saying it's simple? Then I go into a rabbit hole where I go negative.
Well, that's a tough one because they shouldn't be saying that to you. I think that's kind of inappropriate for anybody to ever say that to an employee, to give you a task and say this should be simple for you, because that's I don't think that's a really good approach. If my boss told me to do something and that it should be simple for me, that's quite an assumption on their part, and I'm with you. I'm with you. I would say, you don't want to admit that it's not simple. It's something that's new for you. So what are you willing to do? I don't think in that case you're out of line for being nervous about that, because that's your director. And if it's not simple for you, I can't help you alleviate your fears on how to.
To be honest, what happened in the past?
Other than talk to somebody about it, maybe talk to somebody about it.
Talking about it. So
I can understand.
Yeah. So what happened is that after that, I told him, just let me know what I need to do, and don't tell me it's simple.
I think that's fair.
Yeah.
I think that's totally fair. I think that's a really not a good approach for a manager or a director to tell somebody that a task they've given them is simple. I think that's odd, personally. I'm not going to ask who that is, but I think you handled it very well then. Yeah, go ahead.
I'll give you standing. Actually, standing in the middle of a room. Like I can sit in a room like this and present, be interactive, but the spotlight pieces, it's like the anxiety right before it.
So what makes you nervous is the fact that you have to stand in front of everybody? then that's one that you might just have to get over from doing this. Because I think because I enjoy it. Like I said, it's something that I hope you all learn to enjoy, the excitement of being able to present. I think it's an opportunity to be able to share your knowledge and your abilities with a bunch of people and have people come up to you later and say, wow, that was really good, you did a great job, and I learned a lot from you, thank you so much. So it might just be a matter of
it's a
going through the
method,
process.
and like I said, it could be like walking to a conference room, sitting at a table, talking to a room full of people, fine. Actually getting up and standing.
And with that said, a lot of people say, oh, it's just a conference room with 8 people in it, so I'm just going to sit down at my laptop. No. If it's a presentation and you're presenting, you will stand. And the slides are behind you on the TV screen or whatever. You will stand and you will still go through the same process. Otherwise, they're going to get bored. That means what must be happening then, if you're just going to sit, that means we're all just looking at slides and you've done something wrong. You're just presenting slides and the slide has become the topic of the hour. Why are you even there? Last couple of tips here for you, and I always encourage this, especially if it's an early meeting, get yourself a good night's sleep. Try to, especially if you're nervous, try to do your best. Meaning, if they want to take you out for drinks and stuff, that's great, but try to encourage it to end somewhat early, not until 2 o'clock in the morning when you have an 8 o'clock meeting. That's of this nature. That's not going to help you out. Get yourself up early enough so that you can arrive early, so that you can set up. You can have your laptop set up. There's a lot of times where all these crazy wires and stuff, you can't get figured out right away, depending upon your computer. And if everybody's in the room when you're trying to do that, and you can't figure it out, that's just going to start building up the nervousness. You want to have all that done ahead of time. You want to make sure you got whiteboard pens ready to go, your clickers ready to go. All that is ready to go so that you could actually step outside the room, maybe go to the restroom, take some deep breaths, and get some positive thoughts, go through your grab in your head so you're ready to come in and just hit the ground running, as opposed to rushing in here. I'm sorry, look at my laptop. I'll do this in a minute. You don't want to start your presentation that way. Now, real quickly, because this one's not usually as long, but right below that is the during. So let's take another minute and a half during the presentation. Things happen. What kind of things that can happen during your presentation make you nervous? Minute and a half, jot down some of your thoughts, and then we'll go through those together. All right, go ahead and finish whatever you're writing. And I'm going to start here with it. Neetha, what makes you nervous during the presentation?
Yeah, so I feel like when I am doing the presentation, many people are watching me. I feel like they might change my presentation or my talking the way I present. And I also am scared of doing some contact sometimes. Yeah.
Okay, what was the first one? I didn't quite catch the first one.
So I feel like when I'm doing the presentation, I feel like people might judge the way I talk or maybe the way I'm just scared
Because of your
about how
accent?
they
Or
not a lot about the accent, but maybe it can be the content or it can be the way I'm presenting.
okay. All right, give me 1 second. How many people have equipment failure written down? Because that certainly is something that can happen. I don't know what my laptop's misbehaving here. Man, what can I do now? I'm trying to think how to word that. So in the middle, is there something, like, is it the way that they're looking at you? Are you just proceeding from the way they're looking at you that they must be thinking a certain way?
Yeah, maybe, and also the crowd, like if it's like bigger crowd and just
Do you think that it's possible? I'm just trying to think if battery's dying, but plugged in, really strange. Do you think it's possible that you are perceiving it yourself? Like, I'm just wondering if you like, are people saying something or doing something, or are you bringing it upon yourself to say, the way that guy's looking at me, I think he must be thinking something about me.
yeah, things like that too.
And in which case, in that one, it's like, I go back to that whole power of the thinking. You're letting yourself, I gotta change my passwords, I gotta put the right one here. There we go. I mean, you're doing the self-sabotage thing, it sounds like. And
Yeah, I mean, I don't know what they think, but I think more like,
have you ever asked somebody, like after the presentation, have you ever reached out to this person or that person, to say, hey, did you have any thoughts or issues with my presentation with this or with my presentation with that? Have you ever asked for feedback?
Actually, yesterday when we had, they gave in the script, right? So
Yeah.
they wrote in the script like.
What do they say? Do they say they have a problem with the way you speak?
No, they said actually it's good, and they
But yet you
always
still
said
have the
it's
fear.
I still have the fear of not my accent, but I have the fear of maybe they might judge my content or maybe my presentation.
Now you have that fear in the middle of your presentation?
Yeah,
Or
yeah, I
really? But it's not based on anything. It's not based on is it because they're checking out? Is it because maybe they're getting on their phones?
No.
Their laptops?
No.
So just in the middle of the presentation, you're suddenly thinking, they don't like my content.
They might.
So that's a tough one because it sounds like you're letting yourself freak yourself out based on nothing.
I don't know.
Based on nothing that they're doing. That's a tough one to give advice on, other than trust yourself, especially when you're getting good feedback. Trust yourself and trust your content. You could also run your content by your mentor when you go through your practice and ask them, what do you think of the content? If they say, that's not good, you really need to punch up this section, then you've got some good feedback. So I would say maybe the one piece of advice I could give you is run some of your content by some of your peers before you go out and present it to get their thoughts. Other than that, trust the audience and trust the feedback. Now I will say, does anybody have anything written down that has something to do with the audience in general in terms of losing the audience or in some case like that? Okay. Because that's one that I get a lot. But difference with what we were just talking about with Anita is here I'm actually getting a really good sense that I'm losing the audience because you're on your phone and he's on his phone and he's on his laptop and he's on his phone and he's on his laptop or they're yawning, and all these things and so forth. So I have a very quick personal story that I want to share because I had a very different perspective about 2 years ago and now I have a slightly different perspective. I went and did a presentation at an agility a couple years ago on website. And this is our big partner event. And it was basically broken down into my sort of a PowerPoint presentation and then more the technical side. Or I shouldn't say PowerPoint, it's a more general overview of fraud and then the website side. And the overview of fraud was kind of an audience participation portion where somebody plays the client, somebody plays the server, somebody plays the hack, so forth, and so on. And I always make whoever's sitting here the client, because I do the most with the client. And within a couple of minutes, this person sitting there was on their laptop, doing something. And one of the pieces of advice I will usually give somebody when if somebody's checked out, is maybe to try to bring them into the conversation, maybe say, what do you think of ASM? Have you used it a lot? And that pulls them back in. But in this case, I couldn't include this person any more than I already was. They were a big part of my whole activity here. And I'm not gonna lie, it did throw me a little bit. And I thought, God, everybody's probably thinking, oh, that guy's so boring, he can't even keep this person interested, But I kept going. A few days later, we were having the closing night party, and a person comes up to me and says, hey, I was in your fraud presentation on Monday, and I looked at him and was like, oh, yeah, you were the client, you played my client. And he said, yeah, that was great, I love your presentation, I got so much out of it. And in my head, I was thinking, seriously? Like, I didn't think he was interested at all in what I was covering. And that was the moment where I realized, that may have had absolutely nothing to do with me at all. 2 minutes before the presentation, he might have gotten a message from his boss that you've got to take care of this right away. I don't know. He may not have wanted to have to be on his laptop. He may have had to have been, and that was just the scenario. So my thought now changes a little bit. When I've got one person who's on their phone, something like that, I'm not going to let it throw me, because I don't know what's going on in their world. I'm going to keep going. Everybody else looks interested. However, when I start noticing that this person's checked out, and that person's checked out, and this one, and that one, and this one, and they're dropping like flies, that's where I have to mitigate something. I have to do something. First off, let's think about what is it I'm doing right now? What part of the presentation am I at? Well, I've been on this slide with 500 words on it, this huge graph slide, matrix with tons and tons of text, and I've been on this slide for 8 minutes. Maybe they're bored of this slide and bored of what I'm talking about right now, and I've been on slides for the last 15 minutes. I think I'm boring my audience. So I have 2 things I can do. I can keep going and lose more people and know that at this point I might as well not even be here because nobody's even paying attention to me, or I can change it up. I can try to do something different because I learned in boot camp that I shouldn't just be relying on slides. I should have also tried to incorporate some sort of audience participation into my presentations. I should have a demo ready to go. I should have some whiteboarding, hopefully interactive whiteboarding, and it's time to change that. Let's move away from the slides, everybody. I've got a really good demo. I'm going to show you this demo. So when I see that I'm losing a majority of my audience, it's up to me as the presenter. We talked about this yesterday. It's your job to change that. And you're not going to be able to change it if you just have nothing but a slide deck and that's all you brought in. I saw this at IAC. I'm sorry. I wanted to have more involvement in some of the presentations that were being done, but it didn't happen. So I just saw a lot of 80, 90 slide decks in some of these presentations, and it was just slide after slide after slide after slide after slide after slide. And I just saw people checking out.
Defiance.
Defiance. Defiance, yeah. There you go. All right, it's your job. Think about how to include the audience more and have some mitigations ready to go. What else do we have? Who's got something else for the during presentation nervousness? Shout it out.
So I have ones that the audience asked me a question that is totally out of the topic.
We kind of already covered that, and I think that's a fair one. Like I said, I get it all the time as well. And again, when you have the real challenging student, because more than likely, that's not going to be the only time that person does that. They might do it over and over again. Depending upon your scenario, whether you're in a training environment where none of these people know each other, or you're in an environment where all these people are co-workers or so forth, I would treat it a little bit differently. After a couple times, I might say, as I said, you know what, that's a incredibly obscure question, and I have really no idea. Would you like me to look that up? They say no. I say, okay, let's move on. They ask me some other crazy question, do the same thing. Odds are, the other people in the room are going, oh, God, I wish you would shut up. And so if it's somebody, if these people don't know each other, on one of the breaks, I might actually take this person aside and say, I really appreciate some of the back and forth, but some of these questions, might be something, if you might want to just email some of them to me, because they're kind of off topic and they're kind of just sidetracking some of our, we have a lot of content to get through. If it's a group of people that all know each other, and Mike is the kind of person who put it all together, if we have a break, I might go to Mike and say, you know what? Anyway, he's making this really difficult. Mike's going to say, I know. He's like that with a lot of presentations. I'll talk to him. I'm sorry. Now, the only problem is what if Li Wei is the contact person? He's the one who put the meeting together. Then it's kind of a tricky one. Then you just have to kind of deal with it, unfortunately, and try to deal with it each time. You still are going to have sympathy in the audience. And this brings up another thing, because things are always going to go wrong. Always going to go wrong. We talked about this in my group yesterday. When something goes wrong, you click through a slide too fast, anything like that. Anything goes wrong. First off, number one, don't say you're sorry. I don't always follow my same advice. You'll hear me say I'm sorry sometimes, but try to get out of the habit of saying, oh, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to go to the slide. Because 99% of the time, they don't even know you did something wrong until you told them you did something wrong. And you've announced it to the whole room that I just screwed up. So try to avoid that. But when something does go wrong, your clicker runs out of batteries, or the projector light goes out, or anything that is, a stressful moment. There's two ways we can approach that, two ways we can handle that. We can show the stress. We can get frustrated. Clicker back, and at that point, everybody's going to get really uncomfortable. Or we can assume that most of these people will probably present as well, and a lot of them have probably had similar scenarios, and they're feeling for us, and we can kind of laugh it off. Years ago, I did this training in Prague, and we used to do what we're doing here with Post-it notes. I used to have people write their fears on Post-it notes and some of their suggested mitigations on Post-it notes. I still have one that I've kept. This is probably one of the few times you'll hear me swear in any of my trainings, but one of the guys wrote as his mitigation for one of the fears, don't give a fuck. Because sometimes we take these things too seriously. We take all this too seriously. This is not rocket science. We're not solving the world's problems here. We're solving some great problems, but we're not solving the world's problems. The fact that my clicker went out, it's not the end of the world. Don't treat it like it is. That's just going to make everybody uncomfortable. If you can laugh it off, you're going to make everybody else more comfortable. And it's okay. Now, if something has happened that you don't want to try to figure out, why is this not working? I don't know what's going on here. I don't know why this is not working, and I'm getting really stressed in front of everybody while they're all watching me. Take a break. Let's all take a break. Let's take 5-10 minutes. They'll love that. Go take a break, take a bio break, go get some coffee. I'll get it figured out. Don't put yourself in this situation where you're trying to figure something out that you don't know what's wrong in front of the whole audience. Take that away, but don't take it too seriously. Laugh off challenging issues, and they will laugh with you. What if the projector goes out? That has happened to me before. What happened? What do we do? I know. Everybody, you guys all come up here around my PowerPoint slide deck, and we'll go through my slides and look over my shoulder. That's a good idea? If we're not going to do that, how am I going to present my topic? Should I just leave?
Use the whiteboard.
How about if we use the whiteboard? Because here's the truth. More often than not, they're going to enjoy your presentation more when you whiteboard it than when you show them on your slides. I always usually do when I'm the audience member. Just go on your slides. Be prepared. Don't let it throw you. Laugh it off. Again, don't take it too seriously. Laugh it off, and they'll get more comfortable. Any other things you have here? I've got one more minute of this, and then we'll move on and give you guys your activity. Send you to lunch. Any other fears you want to share that happened during? I'll finish this one last story. 20 some odd years ago, I went to go to an outdoor venue concert up over east in the middle of the state of Washington. Really cool outdoor venue. This was the middle of summer, by the way. And the headline act was Tina Turner. Very exciting. I had never seen Tina Turner before. So cool. The opening act was Cyndi Lauper, who I also love. I thought that was very exciting. And about 2 hours before the show, it started raining. And so everyone in the audience, it's an outdoor venue, you know, so people have their umbrellas and this and that. And Cyndi Lauper came out, she was pregnant at the time, and she came out to try to, to do her set. They literally had guys on the stage with big squeegees, you know, and they're squeegeeing off the water off the stage while she's performing. The sound is going in and out. She got through about 3 or 4 songs, and then they decided to pull her. Thankfully, it cleared up before Tina Turner performed, so she was able to do her whole show. But I remember thinking to myself at that time, if she could handle that stress on stage while that's happening, she could still perform, we could do anything. We could do anything, because that had to have been a stressful situation. And she did great. So we can do great as well. I get goosebumps. So, let's talk about your activity. First off, one of the things that probably made a lot of you nervous yesterday was the fear of losing your place. Would you take a couple of those and pass them down so everybody has a couple of these? How many of you did worry about losing your place or did lose your place? Lost your train of thought, lost where you were supposed to go? Because I try to encourage you not to have too many notes. When you're not going to have any notes, you're not going to have any slides, you're up there on your own, it's unless you practice it 20 times, it's very possible to lose your place. It's great to have slides. That's the use of slides. They're always going to help keep me on track. So without slides, what am I going to do? Well, what we're going to do is we're going to use notes. We're going to use some notes. But I don't recommend your notes be on sheets of paper like this for a few reasons. Number one, if you are nervous at all, they can kind of tell because your hands are shaking a little bit. They can all hear the rattling. Number two, this kind of prevents you from gesturing because it's too big. But more importantly, when I have too much paper, I tend to write too much. I tend to write out full sentences. And if I have full sentences on here, what am I going to do? I'm going to read. I'm going to be like, Big IP solves many problems for you in your organization. We saw that one of the top 10 turnoffs is people who read. So we don't want paper. What I like about the index card, a couple of things. First off, I can gesture. Doesn't rattle. But I can also follow along here. I can use my thumb to sort of follow my place as soon as I do a topic. Now, I may not even need this. I may not even need this because I'm fine. But if I kind of do lose my place, I can kind of just look down and see what's next. Oh, yes, that's right. DNS. Oh, this is the wrong one. First off, what I'm going to have you do, okay, here's what you're going to do. Here's what you're going to do, is you are going to take your outline from yesterday, your presentation from yesterday, and you're going to put it onto an index card. But you're not going to do that.
No.
If you do that, same problem. You're going to find yourself reading what's on there. What I want your index card to look like is that. An outline to follow so that you can easily just look at your card. You might even set it down unless you need it. And if you need it, you can come back over and pick it up and look at it. It's not distracting. It's okay to have these notes. People don't find that distracting. What they don't like is when you just have a whole sheet and you're reading it. So I find this really works well. What I don't recommend is multiple cards. If you have too many index cards, then what happens inevitably is you're going to be like, oh, wait, that's not the next one. Wait. 1 second here. So, try to get my outline onto one index card. I don't recommend that you memorize your whole presentation. Nobody can memorize their whole presentation. However, there is one part of your presentation that I think you should have very close to memorized, very well rehearsed. Anybody know what part that is?
Opening.
The opening. You should not have to come out and say, hi everybody. Last week I was traveling to, we don't want to do that. We want to just come right out and we want that grab to be so tuned and so perfect. Just get their attention. And that's what I recommend for you. So, here's what you're going to be working on. I don't want you to make any major modifications to your presentation because I don't really want you to be investing a lot of your time on that. The only thing I encourage you is if I gave you advice or Brett gave you advice or any of your peers gave you advice on your content, you know, your grab wasn't good enough or whatever, you can make some tweaks, make some modifications as you feel necessary. But don't spend 20, 30 minutes redoing your presentation. The idea is to get some key points onto an index card. Get your presentation turned into an outline. That should take you 10 some odd minutes, maybe 15 minutes tops to get onto the outline. The important part of this particular activity is to practice. Whether you did it or not yesterday, I really want you to feel the difference today, having practiced at least once, but I encourage you to go through it twice. Find some breakout space. There's a lot of breakout space here, the floor above us, the other floor of the hub. Just find some breakout space. Go through it a couple times and tell your partner what you were working on from yesterday. Oh, I didn't move a lot. Remember, a live practice means you're standing up. I didn't move a lot. They told me I didn't move a lot. So you give me some feedback. And then take their feedback and then try it again. Go back and forth a couple of times. And that'll be your full time. I'm going to give you actually 45 minutes. And we're also, of course, going to be taking lunch at this time as well. And then when we come back together, we'll go into the same groups, and you're going to go through your same presentations a second time and see how you feel, where we have improvement, and so forth. Anyone have any questions or last thoughts?
Index card, one card, probably just one side, right?
Oh, if you need to go to a second side, but this is a 3 to 4 minute presentation. You shouldn't be putting your whole presentation on the card. The whole presentation should be up here. In other words, if you're going to be talking about full proxy architecture, you don't need to write on your card, full proxy architecture, client makes one request to server, server makes one request. This enables us to do it. You should know all that. All you need to put is full proxy architecture because that's the next part of your topic. That's the next thing you're going to talk about. And then you should be able to freely talk about what it is you want to talk about. You don't need to put every word. All right, so let's take an hour and a half. So that's 12:30, 1:30, I think 2 o'clock. I might get a little bit behind. Right, we always are. Oh, no, we're not. 2 o'clock. So you have until 2 o'clock, and we'll be back here at 2 o'clock. Again, practice, practice, practice. Take the feedback, come back, and let's shine together. So we'll see you guys at 2 o'clock.